Hi, Florence, you are muted.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again, Living in the Digital World series. Depending on where you are joining us from, my name is Florence Topher, and I am the Director of Mobile Web Ghana. I'll be your moderator for this session. I'm moderating from American Corner Agbogba. American Corner Agbogba is part of American Spaces, and American Spaces provides access to current and reliable information about the United States, and we are doing this through book collection, internet access, events, and activities for everyone. Today, we are discussing a very important topic, how you can deal with misinformation in the media space. And as we know, we receive information from the media on a daily basis. How would you know that this is misinformation, this is true or not true? Facilitating this session is Regina Asamoah, and she is the programs director of Atinka TV and Radio. Regina is a journalist, gender activist, documentary filmmaker who for the past 13 years has made her art of storytelling a lifestyle rather than a job. She's the head of news and current affairs at Atinka Media Village. Through her report, several defiled girls have received justice, with some being put back to school on sponsorship. So we are hand over the session to Regina. Regina, over to you. Take us through what we have for today and educate us how we can handle misinformation in the media space.
Thank you very much, Florence, for the introduction. And then a warm welcome to all of us, the unseen and seen participants of this session. Today's session is on how we can deal with misinformation in the media space. I'm excited to be doing this because as a journalist, we thrive on information. And it is very critical to know that you have a role that helps people to take a decision. And so in our daily activities, what we try is to give accurate information. And so I'm happy you are joining me for us to go through this session. And I'm hoping that by the end of the session, you will be informed. And then you would help us so that the whole issue about misinformation thriving can be eliminated or reduced. So I've shared my slides. Okay. So the outline for my presentation, we'll first have an introduction, and I'll try to help you to understand what misinformation is. The media space, I know you know, but we'll just refresh our minds on the existing one we have, and then how best we can know how to move around it. And then how do you deal with misinformation? Very important. How do you deal with it? And then my concluding remarks. And then I hope you have questions for me, because I'm eager to answer all your questions. Now, as part of my introduction, we all know Kofi Annan. We know how influential he has been. And he's one person that when it comes to information, he believes that it is something that liberates people. It helps people to progress in life. And so informing people means that you have to give them accurate information. This presupposes that when you don't give the people accurate information or they are misinformed, whatever they will do or the action that will take will not be in the best interest, either for themselves or for the community or the nation as a whole. And so he says, knowledge is power, information is liberating, education is the premise of progress in every society, in every family. And this is a very important quote. How then do we know what information is and what misinformation is? So if you get to know what information is, then you can help me as I help you to understand how best you can deal with misinformation. So knowing what information is, quickly, just understand that knowledge communicated or received concerning a particular fact or circumstance is information. So I am communicating something to you, and we know what communication means. Communication is shared meaning. Shared meaning as in what I'm telling you, you understand what I am telling you. If I communicate with you and you don't understand, there's no communication in the first place. And so that is about information. Information is organized or classified data, which has some meaningful values to the receiver. So whatever you receive, there's meaning to it. And information is also the processed data on which decisions and actions are taken. This is very important at this point. Information is the processed data on which decisions and actions are taken. So anytime you are passing on an information, you should have at the back of your mind that the information I'm passing on has the potential of helping whoever is receiving the information to take a decision. And would you want the person to take a negative decision or a positive decision because of the information you passed on? That is where I want all of us to put ourselves in. Because for the decision to be meaningful, it means the information you passed on to the receiver must have these characteristics. It must be accurate, it must be timely, accurate, and complete. Information should be available when required. Information should be available when required. That's when we talk about timeliness. And then accurate. Information should be true. It should be correct. That is what can help people take the right decisions. And information should be complete. That is why when we delve more into how information or misinformation is happening all over, you will get to know that sometimes you even receive the information and it's not complete. That alone should give you a clue that what you are receiving, don't pass it on, because when you pass it on, you are not helping the receiver to take a critical decision. And so now we know what information is. Now, what is misinformation? That's a quick quote there by George Bernard Shaw, which says that beware of false knowledge. It is more dangerous than ignorance. So if you don't know, it is better than you knowing what is wrong. If you want to pass an information, it should be accurate. If you don't know, don't pass it on, because for the person to receive false knowledge, it is very dangerous, because people rely on information to take critical decisions. So in this particular topic, before we finish this session, I want you to move away from my session knowing that whatever information I'm sending out, which media space I find myself, it is going to have a consequence. That consequence, is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? What is my role? And that is what we'll be discussing as we move forward. So there are several explanations when it comes to misinformation. This is because there are other related words like disinformation and malinformation. And so sometimes drawing the thin line between what information, misinformation is from these words become complex, but there are several schools of thoughts as you read around what misinformation is. However, I'll need you to have this basic explanation. So misinformation is information that is false. It is false, but not intended to cause harm. That is one school of thought. That misinformation is, you have an information that's false, quickly you share it. Your intent sharing the information is not that you want to cause harm to the one receiving. That is not your intent. That is misinformation. That is not intent. That is one school of thought. But there's another school of thought that says that as far as the information is false, regardless of the intent for which you are sharing the information, it is still misinformation. Whether the intent was to mislead or not to mislead, it is misinformation. That is another school of thought. But when you look at these two schools of thought, you get to realize that the bottom line is that the information is what? It is false. So we have some individuals who don't know a piece of information is false, and they'll keep sharing. So you are part of those spreading misinformation. And that is something we all have to know. Now, currently, the media space has evolved. It has evolved. We started from, I remember growing up, we will all wait till 6 o'clock, then we will go and listen to GBC. But now, I know very well that it's not even at the click. Sometimes you're not even ready to read, but you keep receiving the highlights, you keep receiving pop-up messages on your phone everywhere. The information is so everywhere you receive the information. So I have a graphical representation here showing all the space we have when we talk about media. The media is like the medium to which information is spread. So you could see the internet, we have the radio, we have magazines, we have television, we have newspapers, and then we have traditional media, new media, where we look at social media, we have Facebook, we have Twitter. As for the apps, we have they are countless, depending on the one you are comfortable with, that is what you use. But the new media space is enlarging, it is broad. And so when you watch the slide, you get to realize that we have a lot of spaces within which information are shared. Principally, I am a journalist working in a medium, or the media space that I work in. We do radio, we do television, we do online, principally these three. But I also find that even with this radio, TV, online, we are interconnected on all these platforms. And so although you watch on television what is happening, at the same time, you can watch online on social media through our Facebook page what is happening. As I communicate with you, you are on YouTube and you are watching or you are following this particular session. So the media space is broad. So consider the media space as any space through which information is received, not just focusing on TV or radio or online or the social media. So considering how broad the media space is, how then do you deal with misinformation? How then do you ensure that you don't spread information that is false? Because now misinformation is widely recognized that it's something that is widespread. And it is a growing global phenomenon and problem. It's not only in Ghana or in Africa, it is everywhere. People are sharing false information, and the spread of false information is making people take decisions that are not helping. And misinformation was very, very rife during COVID-19. During COVID-19. That is how you can realize that you are in Ghana, but you can receive detailed information from China and from other countries telling you how they are killing people because of COVID-19. The one who, a lot of conspiracy theories were just circulating. So it's not just in Ghana, and the whole idea about misinformation is a global problem. That is why I must commend the US Embassy Ghana together with Mobile Web Ghana for putting this together. I know we are working on the media literacy, where we had a first session trying to educate the youth on how to go about handling misinformation. Because now being media literate is critical to your survival. Being media literate is critical to your survival, because that is where you receive information. And based on those information, you take decisions. So now you don't have to wait to say that, let me go to a media school, let me go to a journalism school or communication school, then I will know how to move around it. We are bringing the information to your doorsteps. And that is why this session is very important, and I hope you are following. Now, to borrow the words of Julia Cole, she says that information is only as reliable as the people who are receiving it. If readers do not change or improve their ability to seek out and identify reliable information sources, the information environment will not improve. This is to say that we all have a role to play when it comes to dealing with misinformation in the media space. Because let's take an example. If I post an information that is false, and you, the one receiving it, take steps to ensure, to check, verify, double check before you share, that information is limited. Whatever I posted is limited. So even if I make a mistake, you, the second person having access to that information, can stop the process. But here lies the case that we always wait. We keep sharing without checking. So then all of us, we are not helping the information environment, and it will not improve, because it's not just the journalists who always have to verify information before sharing. And I must say that the fact that you are a journalist, or the fact that you are, let me say, a lawyer, or whatever profession you find yourself, Principally, we think journalists should know everything. So we are the primary source of information. We share a lot of information. But I am not immune to misinformation if I don't take the necessary steps to verify. So sometimes you receive information from journalists, you don't run with it, because as an individual, you also have the potential of checking whether that information is false or it is true. And as we move on, I'll show you how to go about it. So everyone here is not immune. We all have a role to play. And when we play our role diligently, then it will help us improve the information environment and curtail the widespread phenomenon of misinformation. So I would want us to, before we go to the steps where you need to know how to deal with misinformation, there's this case study I'm sharing with you all, and I hope you read along with me. In this case study, it's still fresh on my mind, how the whole thing happened. And when it happened, I asked myself, this is a clear example of misinformation, because you see, we were hoping and believing that whatever we receive should be something that is good. And so when the false information came out, we all ran with the information. And the twist between knowing that what I was running with is false and now coming to accept the reality brought a traumatizing moment for those who took decisions based on the information that they received. That is why misinformation is something we all have to fight. We all have a role. So the case study, I hope by now you have read the full details on the slide. It is an earthquake happened in Turkey on February 6, 2023. The devastating 7.8 magnitude quake claimed thousands of lives, including Ghanaian football star Christian Atsu. May his gentle soul rest in peace. Before the official announcement on February 18, 2023, that Atsu's body was found under the rubble, there were several reports in the media space. Just a day after the incident, 7 February 2023, that he had been found alive and injured. This information, which was false, had spread through most media platforms, with social media leading in the circulation. So this is a typical scenario of misinformation. Obviously, the intent was not to cause harm, but that does not take away the fact that the information was false. You see how misinformation presents itself. So everyone, all of a sudden, we all became so happy because we had received information that our brother, our friend, our uncle has been found. How it even started, it's even interesting. We had renowned journalists sharing this information. We trusted the source, so we were sharing the information. But it took some other persons to double check, cross check, triple check, to come and tell us that that information is false. So misinformation is all around us, and we all have a role to play. I know you watching or listening to me, you shared the information that actually was found. We all shared. That is why we are not all immune. We are not immune to misinformation. But the point is, you have a role to play. I have a role to play. And how do we do this? Anytime you receive information on any of the media platforms or the media space, wherever it is it on your phone you receive the information? Did you watch television? Is it on radio? Is it in the newspapers? Where did you receive? Which of your apps did you receive the information? There's always an opportunity for you to cross-check. In fact, double-check before you share that particular information. And see, when you receive the information or hear about the information, you have to consider the source of the information. Where is this information coming from? So if it's online, you see either underneath the story or on top of the story, after the headline, you see source, then they will credit. They'll credit the source. Then you get to know where the story is coming from. Because sometimes, especially online platforms, it's not all the stories, not all the stories that are published are from that particular media house. They also pick stories from other platforms. So anytime they do stories, they will source. Check the source. Click away from the story to investigate the site, its mission and its contact info. Sometimes you receive links and we just share. You don't even click to look at this link. Who are those behind it? Every credible platform, you get to know those who are behind that platform. Please try and do this for us as we all try to curb the whole phenomenon or the widespread of misinformation. Consider the source before you share the information. Another critical thing I need you to do is read beyond. Read beyond. You can read beyond when you are not just looking at the headline. You are not just looking at the headline, then you can read beyond. Some of us, we just click on the headline, then we run with it. We don't read beyond. And that is very, very, very wrong, because headlines can be deceptive. Headlines can really be deceptive. And so we always encourage that. Don't just focus on the headline. Read beyond what the headline says. So click on the link and then go further. Read the story, because some of the headlines that are put out there are just for the clicks. The headlines are just for the clicks. And so before you share a content, and so there are some platforms, when you are sharing a content, they'll tell you, you have not read this content. Do you still want to share? Then you say yes or no, depending on whether you trust the source. But don't share an information when you have not read it. That is very important. Headlines can be outrageous in an effort to get clicks. Get to know what's the whole story. And that is very crucial. Now, another thing I need you to know is to check the author. So if you check a story and my name is there, Regina, as someone, I published it, quickly you can search me out, especially for information that you receive or stories that you receive that is going to help you take critical decisions. Check who published the story. Get to know who the author is. A quick search won't take you a lot of minutes, but it will save you from sharing an information that is false. Now, supporting
I think our facilitator has a technical issue and she'll be joining us shortly. And so back to the topic we are talking about, dealing with misinformation. Have you ever had any issue? Have you ever had any information that you felt was false? How did you react to it? I really want to hear from you. Please send us your question and we will address your question. I quite remember during COVID, someone sent me a message and it was really terrifying. The person said, today is the day when you go out, you would have COVID-19, because 14 days after it has entered into a certain country, you're not supposed to go out, even if you want to buy something outside. I was really terrified by that information. I thought of it. So what do I do with this information? Should I go out? Should I not go out? But in the end, I went out and I felt that, look, this person that sent me this information, I'll really be careful about what information or what content I consume from this person. Have you ever had such an experience? I'm looking forward to reading your comments online. Please share with us how you've been able to deal with malinformation, misinformation, any kind of information you have dealt with before. Please let us know and we will pick up your question and we will read it. And I can see a couple of you online, all the people joining us online. We say good morning, good afternoon to you. If you've had any experience with malinformation, I mean, this happens everywhere, especially during election. I mean, we would go into election next year. I'm really looking forward to really hearing from people we have empowered, their ability to capacity to be able to detect what information is wrong, which one is correct from the various parties that we would see. I'm looking forward to it. And I hope that this session is just coming in handy to be able to help you to deal with this thing. Please let know I'm still waiting to read your various comments. Yes, so please let's know, let's see, and let's read more about how you've been able to deal with malinformation, misinformation. And I know that one of the strategies you need to be able to detect, as Regina was presenting to us, is that you really, when you receive information, you really need to pause. You really need to pause. And you know, like the COVID information I received, it was really very terrifying. I didn't know what to do with the information. But I said to myself, what do I do? What do I do with this information? What would happen? You know? So I'm really glad that I did. I'm really glad that I did pause. So when you receive any information, the rational thing to do is to just pause. Is to just pause. So the good thing is to just pause. And when you pause, it gives you enough time to dissect the information, gives you enough time to really evaluate the information, gives you enough time to think. If I share this, would I be contributing to spreading false malinformation? Will I be part of that segment of people who are spreading information that is not true? I mean, so I paused, and before I didn't even send that information to anyone. So I kept the information on my phone. I didn't share it, but I also marked that this person who has shared this information with me that, it's very tricky. This person didn't take his or her time before sending me this information. So I'll really evaluate subsequent information that comes from this person. And so that is what I did. I'm sure that if I had taken it serious, I wouldn't have even been able to go out at all on that day, because of the fear that when I go out, I will be getting the virus. And so this is one way I dealt with malinformation. If I don't feel comfortable with it, and especially the effect it would have on the participants or the people I'm going to share the information with, I will be careful. I'll be careful not to share the info. So you must pause is the first step. And then you have to reflect. Like I mentioned, I reflected exactly on the content I'll be sharing to other audience. And after reflecting, I saw that it wasn't good for me to share the information. I reflected, I paused, I reflected, and I stopped sharing the information. So welcome back, Regina. We have our facilitator back online, and we are happy to have you back to continue the session with us.
Thank you very much. And sorry for the break.
Oh, I'll be on the standby, waiting to read out your questions, and please go over.
All right. Thank you very much. And my apologies for the break. And so, well, before the break, we were talking about dealing with misinformation in the media space. And I had done that of considering the source of the information, reading beyond the headlines, going ahead to check about the author, and then also supporting sources. So for some stories that you get to meet or you are shared, you realize there are other attached links. Try tapping on it to see if those information that they are claiming they picked from that particular source is actually from that source. When you do that, you save us and you help all of us by not sharing information that may get to me. Maybe when you started the information, it got to Florence, and so Florence will do the cross-checking. Florence will not pass it on. Then you save me from receiving the information. So we all have a role to play. So these are the first points of you considering the source, reading beyond, and then checking the author, and as well making sure that you have the supporting sources. There are other ways we can also do this, and that is, one, you also have to continue to check the date. You have to check the date because an information that was posted last year might not be relevant to this year. So COVID-19, before the vaccines were fully accepted and then vaccination started a whole lot, there were a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding the vaccines. But for the period for which we are in now, some of these conspiracy theories have been proven false, or it's not something that we would say that we will hold on to, because there've been a lot of research, there've been a lot of updates, a lot of knowledge sharing on a whole lot of things. And that is why sometimes on Facebook, when you receive a notification from Facebook that memories, so memories, the person will share the memory. But when you receive that information, it doesn't mean it is a new post. It is an old post. But you also find yourself not even checking the date that information was published, and then you would share. And so the other thing you need to look at is that information I would want to hold on to, is it a joke? Or it is something that is factual? Because if it is too outlandish, it might be a satire. Research the site and outcome to be sure. Sometimes we run with information, but whatever is in that information is not even factual. That is why we always say, check out the source, check out the author, and check the publishing firm that is even publishing that story. Or even if you receive it on WhatsApp, make sure you check all those things. And then check your biases. Some of us, we all have our biases. And because we have our biases, sometimes you receive information and it fits so well with you that you don't even want to cross-check. You just share. Because with you, that is what you want to hear. And because that is what you want to hear, you share the information. So you also have to check your biases. Consider if your own beliefs could affect your judgment. So whatever you are sharing, if it affects your judgment, and you know that you are pro or anti to this information, you don't even take your time to read. You don't take your time to read, and you share. And our biases also contribute to the spread of misinformation. And also, you can ask the experts. Sometimes you receive information, and as journalists, it's very critical. You receive information, and then you realize that this is an area you don't know much about. What prevents you from checking or asking someone you think knows in that area? Although the caveat is that the fact that the person is knowledgeable in that area does not mean the person is immune to misinformation. That is the caveat I want to leave with you. That the fact that I'm a journalist does not mean that I'm immune to misinformation. It can happen to me. It can happen to you. So I have presented you with 8 steps that you need to know when you are dealing with misinformation. Now, the other approach I would also want you to do, this is a very quick one in this diagram, that to deal with misinformation in the media space. When you see a post, ask yourself. You need to ask yourself a lot of questions before you share. That is why for some of my colleagues would say that before you share a post, check, double check, in fact, triple check before you share or you communicate that information. Aside you checking, wait. Sometimes when we read the headlines, we're in a hurry to share. We're in a hurry to share, so we don't even look at anything. And we've gone through that. Now, quickly on this slide, we'll choose to ignore. You receive some information and you are not sure. You can choose to ignore. No one is forcing you to share that information. Unless you are a journalist like me, where you are working with timelines, you have to publish stories and everything. Even with that, you have your senior colleagues who are there to assist. You have other experts you can share your opinion with. It is not mandatory that you're on a WhatsApp platform, so anytime they post information, you just pick and share. When you keep doing that, you'll be sharing, you'll be part of those spreading false information, and that is misinformation. Sometimes you receive audio. Recently, there was an audio that was spreading about one driver that claimed that in Ghana, the audio was shared in Ghana, about one driver that claimed that he was brutally assaulted by the police. And they even planted narcotic drugs in his car. That audio was widely circulated. I received that audio myself. So I asked myself, who is even talking? Or he mentioned his name, who is he? He was mentioning names of police officers and how they're all connected. So I was like, okay, I will share this information. You mentioned a police officer. We can quickly check on that police command and be sure whether that case even happened. But a lot of people share that information because our biases. We already have a particular perception about the Ghana police. And so you quickly share it. You can choose to ignore. It is not by force. Please leave this session knowing that it is not by force to be sharing every information you see along the way. You can choose to ignore because it is not relevant to you, because you cannot cross-check it. If you can't cross-check and be sure about it, don't spread it. You also have to be skeptical. You need to be skeptical because look at the image. Sometimes you can even see that it is Photoshop. We are in Ghana where we saw an image of our president. And the way the picture was shown, immediately you see that picture, you will realize that this picture is Photoshop, claiming a whole lot of insinuations. But people were sharing that information. But a critical look at even the images will tell you that this is a Photoshopped picture. It doesn't even look believable. You can't even believe it. So sometimes we have to be skeptical because the information you are sharing is going to help someone take a decision. And you don't want to be the one behind the person taking a decision that will affect his or her life. And one thing we also need to know is that when you see a post, aside choosing to ignore, aside being skeptical about it, take a face value. When we are talking about taking a face value, I'm asking you to do this. Ask yourself the question, are you trusting the poster, the one who posted it? Can it be trusted? Is it a confirmation of my bias? Or is it a confirmation that this information going out? For instance, the COVID vaccine information about COVID-19 vaccine, sorry. Because for some people, they are scared of vaccines. For some, the mere fact of going to the hospital is even something they don't even like. And so every information that came about COVID-19, that seems to downgrade any particular vaccine, they were just sharing the information. Because why? It's confirm your own bias of what you don't want. So please, let's be mindful. Some of these things happen unconsciously, but leaving my session, you should know that you have a role to play. Now, when you are skeptical about the whole information you receive, there are two things you can do. You can choose not to investigate. You can choose to investigate. You can choose not to investigate because I'm not in the mood to share. I'm not interested. I don't even have the time. So I will not share. I will not investigate. I will not share. You can choose that position. But if you want to share any information, choose to investigate. How do you do it? Evaluate who the poster is, evaluate the source, and compare with other sources. Because the media space, as we have all seen in my illustration, it is wide. And so an information that is in the newspapers to be in the radio, to be online. Because of the, the frequency of how some information would be shared, maybe you first see the story online. Because now maybe we are waiting for breaking news on TV or on radio or the major news bulletin before you hear. Before you also start spreading the information, please compare with other sources. Just this week, there was an information from Ashaman about the death of a young soldier. And I know that there were lots of misinformation that was spread around the death of this boy, who he was when he even completed his training, where he was going to, where he was stationed. A whole lot of misinformation just within seconds has spread over the internet, with some media houses even running with the misinformation. So we are all not immune to it. It can happen to you, it can happen to me, it can happen to everyone. But knowing the steps can help you so that you take a minute, you breathe, you check the source, you double check, you compare with other sources before you share. And then to conclude, I will say and go back to what Julia Kohler said. She is a learning solutions lead developer. Information information is as reliable as the people who are receiving it. If readers do not change or improve the ability to seek out and identify reliable information sources, the information environment will not improve. Re-echoing that we all have a role to play. I have told you, please, if not for anything, double check. Read beyond the headlines. Read beyond the headlines. If you are not sure, don't share any information. It is not by force to share every information that you come along with. And when we all do this, we will help the information environment to improve, to get to know more of what we do as a journalist, the work we do, and how we can continually help. You can cross-check the information that we share. You can get interactive with me on the various platforms that I have shared. They're on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. My handles are all there. It's Regina Asamoah. Let's get interactive. And then I hope that we will all leave this session knowing that it is not by force to share any information that you receive. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Regina, for that wonderful education that you gave us. And there are a couple of questions, and so I want to start with the questions.
Yes.
You mentioned in your presentation that journalists are not immune to misinformation, as well as the ordinary citizens. Yeah. So, are we safe? Are we safe? Yes, are we safe? So, if the people that produce news items, content for us to consume, it's expected. Can you imagine the people producing water and everything, and then we assume that the water they are producing, as they are not giving us the right quantity or quality for us to consume? What do we do? Are we safe? Are the citizens safe if we can't count on journalists to be able to give us accurate information?
All right, thank you for the question. We are safe. Let me start with. Okay. We are all safe because we all have a duty. Let's say the journalists are the forerunners. Okay, that is why when you're a journalist, you meet every journalist as part of your training. You have to check, double check, triple check. If you are not sure, don't publish. But we always realize, and it's a fact, that we have some journalists that will not go through all these processes and will be in a rush to post. That is why in my presentation, I emphasize on the need to check the source of the information and also to compare sources, because journalists will do their best. I know will do their best, but just as is with every other profession, there are some who will not go through the process as is expected. Now the understanding of who a journalist is even now has become even contextualized, because to the extent that some people or persons who are even bloggers would even say they are journalists. You understand? And so everybody who sees any information out there posted, the person will not even check if the person is a blogger or the person will just say, this journalist posted a story. And so that is really affecting even we journalists, because we are having people who are not practicing what they should practice. But every journalist who is trained, worked within a media space that is credible, always would cross-check, But however, it cannot be 100%. That is why you have to compare. So if you receive an information from my media house, there's another media house, there's another media house, you realize that there is some kind of connection. You realize that the storyline is the same. You understand? So that is why even we as media houses, we monitor like 5 platforms at a time. So you come to our media house, there's this channel, there's this channel, there's this channel. So even if my reporter calls me from the grounds and give me information, I trust my reporter to give me the accurate information. Once I trust my reporter, I am monitoring what another platform is reporting. That is part of the cross-checking we do at our level. But there are some that will not do that. And that is why I said that we are not immune.
Okay, thanks. And based on that premise, you know, when you come, we are talking about misinformation in the media space, how we can deal with it. And if you just join us, you can send in your comments. And based on that premise, right? You know, in the media space, you are dealing with time, you are dealing with speed, you are dealing with resources, and you are dealing with competition as well. I mean, based on all these factors, will we get to a time where we will consume quality information? Based on these factors, you are dealing with time, you are dealing with speed, you are dealing with competition, and you are dealing with resources like money. I mean, what you can get out of the news items you are releasing to your audience.
Yes, thanks, Flores. This is a very important question, very, very important question. For me, I think that the role of the journalist providing accurate information will always be fundamental, no matter how evolving we find ourselves. And we have seen this with other countries, how they have all evolved, the media space has evolved. What we are doing is that, yes, we are working with competition, but that does not take away the fact that you need to cross-check.
Okay.
The competition is there. It will forever be there. But the baseline of every media house is to churn out correct information. And so for that, it will be there. The speed is there. That is why now you realize, previously, when you want to read an online story, sometimes we would want to give you the full details of the story at a time. But now we have moved to the extent that we can just post just a sentence, just the lead, and we write more soon. So in the process of cross-checking everything, we give you a hint that this is a story that is coming up and that we are checking our facts. So we are working with speed, but we are still making sure that we check our facts. So it will evolve, but fundamentally, I can assure you that the media houses, the journalists we have who understand the profession will always cross-check,
Oh, okay. So if you know a journalist, you should assume, it's an assumption that they are always cross-checking, they are always validating the information before they release. And we have a question from our audience, Tao Kakom, and he is asking, how do you deal with misinformation related to images, doctored tips or images? How do you deal with it?
Thank you for the question. When it comes to images, there are lots of technicalities that come with it. And I know that sometimes there are some of the pictures immediately you see, some of them immediately you see, you get to realize that this picture is photoshopped, as I said earlier. However, there are other fact-finding or fact-checking sites that exist that you will be able to check if that photo or that image is credible. Those exist as well. And then aside those existing, we have experience where we've used images where they are wrong to a story. And sometimes we have to come and apologize. It does happen. I won't run away from it. It does happen. And so when we want to cross-check and be sure of the image we are using, we always want to get it from the primary source. We, those who are pushing the story, we want to get the image from the primary source. But sometimes, because of speed and everything, you go online and you want to pick a particular picture and use. So that also comes with its own technicalities. But what I would say to the one asking the question is that some you would see just by seeing the photo. Others too, you would have to assess the other apps or the other sites that are into fact-checking to be able to help you check the images. And even sometimes the stories, there are some fact-checking sites you can access.
So there are resources online that we can use to check whether the image is the right image or not. So Talca, if you're listening to me, you can find out or you can reach out for more information on how you can validate images. And there's a question from Emmanuel is asking, should social media platform promote themselves as a source of news?
Okay, if I understand, should social media platforms
promote themselves as a source of news items, as a source of news? So for instance, you see, maybe there is a news from Facebook. So do you trust such a news item? How do you validate fake news from such big media, big social media platforms?
Okay, so I'm trying to understand his question, but I'm attempting to answer. If he's not satisfied, he can let me know, and then I will see if I didn't get his question right. So you are asking whether on the social media, like maybe Facebook, can be seen as a credible source of information.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so on Facebook, we have individuals, groups, associations, media houses having accounts on Facebook. So for instance, if you go on Facebook now and you check, you see Atinka TV Ghana, we have a platform there where we also post information there. When we post information on our platform, it is a credible source of information on social media, that is on Facebook, that you can have. Similarly, we have other media houses. I can talk of the Ghana News Agency. I can talk of the Daily Graphic and other media platforms. They all have handles or accounts. And when they post information there and you go for that information, it is credible because it's from a credible source. However, picking information from individual accounts that you don't know who the author is, I can't guarantee that that information is true. Unless you see that that individual is posting the information from a credible source, like from a media house or from another online platform or something. So you have to check wherever the information is coming from, whether it's online, social media, TV or radio. It is the source that really matters, because the source, if it's a credible source, would post information that is credible, even on their social media handles.
Okay, so
I don't know whether that is the explanation for.
I hope that answers your question, Manuel. You can always come back to clarify if it's right, if we've answered your question or not. But moving on, I want us to take a deep dive into next year. Next year will be an election year for Ghana. And, you know, it's a period where it seems like it's the Christmas of misinformation. It's like it's in abundance, like everywhere. So I want you to do you have any tips for people who would be receiving election-related information? How do they validate if this information is right or not? Or is it possible, or during that era, we should just assume that, look, we would receive misinformation, and so we should be ready for it? Or how is it? Can you give us some tips?
Florence, I love this question. You know, immediately you started talking about elections, I just remembered all the elections we have covered and what has happened and how we survived it. You know, it is a moment where misinformation is rife because our individual biases alone spreads the information. Our various political affiliations, that alone is a breeding ground for misinformation. But wait, as an individual, so that you don't let your BP go up, or you don't put yourself in a dire situation where you take a decision and later to realize that the information you received was false, that made you took that decision and you have to suffer the consequences of it. This is what you need to do. And this will be some few tips I'll share with you. During the election time, dedicate your time to receiving information from credible media houses, sources. Not just one, not just two, minimum 3. Because when you rely on just one, and there's I won't say there will be a mistake. I wouldn't say there will be a mistake, but we are humans. So rely on 3 sources. This will offer you the opportunity to be able to know, oh, they reported that votes from Volta region is like this, votes from Ashanti region is like this. You get to know. We know how the election trend moves here. There are some regions we all wait for the results. And as you wait for the results, rely on other media houses because your bias will make you move to wherever you want to move to. And because of your biases during elections, I would advise that you don't pay attention to well-known, and they are well-known either pro or anti-government media houses. You should know, because you know that this particular media house is pro this party. And so almost every information that is coming, sometimes they would report, but they would prefer to report and give you figures of the other side and not the other side. And you would think you are winning, only to realize that you are not winning. And then you become furious, and then you doubt the Electoral Commission, and then you resort to violence. Misinformation can let the election period be so heated up, and you can help by making sure that you don't fall victim to it. And during that period, you realize that people share results, election results, a lot on WhatsApp. You'll be there, you'll be receiving the information on WhatsApp. Please don't rely on it, because that information can be changed at every point in time. When I receive it, I can decide to change the figures and reset. Please don't follow that. The best thing you have to do, and on social media, please be measured with the posts you read and share. Because around that time, if you're not careful, and you also go and share an information that is false, you find yourself in a problem, in a big trouble. So please, during election time, very soon we are getting there, the campaign will start. Devote your time to watching, listening, reading from credible sources. And in Ghana, we have a lot of credible sources. And that is what you should devote your time to.
Very nice conclusion. At least listen to 3 media houses to validate whatever you are receiving from this outlet. So thank you very much, Regina. It's been an amazing time. And I personally have learned a lot about researching, just to research well about the person writing, the source, and different kind of things that I need to do when I receive any news item. Thank you very much for educating us. And before we leave, I really want to introduce you to an amazing online resource that we have that will be helpful to you. And this is the eLibrary USA. It's available in all American spaces, and you can walk into any of the American spaces or send an email or connect to them via social media and inquire more about the eLibrary USA. eLibrary USA is the state-of-the-art digital library with 9 premium electronic databases that include digital newspapers, magazines, journals, videos, dissertation, and other amazing things that you would really get on the eLibrary USA. And so this program was brought to you by the U.S. Embassy Ghana, American Corner Global, in partnership with Mobile Web Ghana. It's been great having all of you online to join us for this program, and this concludes our program for today. Please follow us on YouTube at U.S. Embassy Ghana for more amazing virtual program. Thank you all for joining us today. Be safe until we meet next time for another amazing program. Always come back to view what we have discussed here on